Watts, CTO at OBO. I'm here to talk about what's new in Sirius. First, I just want to say welcome back. I'm so happy to be with all of you today. I can't believe it's already been a year since the last SiriusCon. It went by so fast. So, what does this year of Sirius bring? Well, today it is clear that modeling tools are at an inflection point. You know, this moment when the familiar rules that govern how your business runs change. Here it is because of technology, of course, but also because of societal and competitive actions. Advances in cloud computing, customer expectations, and the basic infrastructure supporting software led to what many have now recognized as a big inflection point, going from desktop softwares of various kinds to software based in the cloud. It is common view now that cloud growth will stay very strong and furthermore will be rising as, first, enterprises have for the last few years successfully tested cloud architectures with less critical workloads and will so in the coming years shift more critical applications to the cloud. And second, the cloud computing power opens the way to advanced applications that can only be delivered from the cloud. In this context, Sirius Web this year has proven to be a great framework to develop domain-specific graphical modelers easily usable from your browser. Now it is time for Sirius Web to be largely used. The Sirius Project is not only Sirius Web, but also Sirius Desktop. Sirius Desktop exists for the one who wants to create modeling tools in the Eclipse workbench as a desktop application. On the other hand, Sirius Web brings the Sirius Principles to a web server rendering your models in a web browser. Before going to more details, just a small warning. I know that it is a virtual conference, but please stay focused. I will go fast and something very cool is coming. Do not miss it. So, while the concentration of engineering effort inside OBO has been on Sirius Web, Sirius Desktop have also been getting plenty of effort and attention. Since last year, we worked as usual on Sirius Desktop, providing two major releases, 6.4, 6.5, and several maintenance releases almost every 2-3 months, each offering a mix of bug fixes and enhancements. In Sirius Desktop, several improvements have been done regarding the ELK integration. Now, the most important use cases are much better covered, with ELK algorithm properly invoked in most scenarios, and the feature can be used more confidently. For example, before with the default arrangeable action and the few options available in the Sirius configuration, the best you could get was something like this, all the elements on the same line. With the ELK integration, you get new superpowers directly available in your Sirius configuration. After developing your own layout, to get, for example, a layout where the specifier can choose the number of lines, the space between each line, and the space between each element. Nevertheless, the ELK integration is still considered experimental as there are some issues identified. Another improvement is available in Sirius Desktop. A new API has been added to make it possible to apply a copy-paste format to an existing or a new diagram with different semantic targets. The current copy-paste format between diagrams relies on semantic target elements to find out which target element matches the source element. This new API allows to perform this copy-paste format based on a semantic source to a semantic target map. Thanks to this, you can implement specific copy-paste tooling, as you can see here. Please refer also to the developer documentation for more details. Our objective for Sirius Desktop is clearly to provide a smoother user experience when opening and working on large representations. For example, on the 5.0 Capella release, the improvements we brought to the sequence diagram were focused on optimizing the response time of user interactions, layout management, layout computation, resize, and move validations. Most of the optimization were done directly in Sirius on the sequence diagram component. This represents 36 changes available in the source code of Sirius 6.4, which add caches, avoid useless code executions, refactor code, and optimize computations. Finally, in order to reduce the maintenance burden of Sirius Desktop, we have decided to deprecate some older mechanisms, like exporting diagrams as GIF, BMP or PDF, as we will focus on PNG, JPEG and SVG. Another thing, OCL expressions in Sirius configurations are also deprecated. You should use AQL expressions instead. And finally, the workflow feature and the server paths which supported this feature will disappear, as it was experimental and not used in practice. It was our first experiment and first attempt in moving Sirius to the web, but this is now replaced by the newly published Sirius Web. I hope that you are still there, as now we will go through the Sirius Web Enhancements. To start, just a quick reminder. Sirius Web is relying on classical web technologies as Spring Boot, React, and classical model technologies like AQL for model querying or ELK for layout. We provide the Sirius components, which are a bunch of components ready to be used to create your own web modeling application as Sirius Web. We also offer a professional version with OCP, the OBO cloud platform, to integrate enterprise capabilities. So, what are the Sirius Web enhancements? This year, for Sirius Web, we continue our effort to rely on a modern web stack. We introduced Apollo to simplify the management of our GraphQL data, Material UI to ease and unify our UI developments, and Xstate to ease the definition of the maintenance of our state machines. Then, based on Thales needs, we worked on the layout topic, which is not the simplest one in the modeling area. We allow the studio maker, the one who defines the Sirius Web configuration, to specify if he wants a diagram to be layouted automatically or not. When a diagram is auto-layouted, the user cannot move an element on the canvas. It is automatically positioned by the ELK algorithm. On another hand, without the auto-layout activated, it is possible for the end user to manage the elements freely on the diagram. The position of the elements is kept by Sirius Web, and if he closes the diagram and reopens it, they are still as expected. Compared to the first Sirius Web release, you see that we had the capability to move elements on free layouted diagrams. You can move nodes, move containers, and resize containers, and also resize nodes. Next one. This one is pretty cool. We introduced the incremental layout. When you move an element, the other elements give their set to the new one in the area. For example, when you move a container close to another, the second one will move a little bit to stay visible. It works also for nodes and for newly created element in the diagram. Another small feature we developed about layout. If, while using the free layout, you finish at a point your diagram is completely messed up, we added a new action to save you. Click on the Arrange All button and ta-da! Your diagram elements will be relayouted automatically thanks to ELK. The next big topic for us was to work on integration. Based on Thales experiments, we started the work on the APIs to make them more generic. Our purpose is to make Sirius Web application able to work with more technologies and schema definitions, not just EMF. You will be able to come with your data structure and use Sirius Web to create representation and graphical editors for your domain. Today's diagram component is ready to work with any model compliant with this generic API. There is still some components that are not totally independent, as the Explorer and the Details view. The previous work led us to a first step about component integration. We are now able to integrate the diagramming component in any web application or in cloud IDEs, as in VS Code or Thea. We investigate also the possibilities to integrate Sirius Web with online spreadsheet editors provided with Nextcloud. This work is a proof of concept and was done with the support of the CEA list. You can refer to Sébastien Gérard's talk, which gave some more details about the context, the vision, and what was done on this topic about SysML v2 and Papyrus next generation. We handled export of model elements to the online spreadsheet, which can offer mass edition of model elements. Second step was to be able to re-import the updated element to the Sirius Web model. Given that, we explored the possibility to widen the representations panel. We introduced the form-based editors. Relying on the same concepts as the properties view mechanism, it allows you to create forms which are really popular in web applications. It reuses the properties view DSL you are used to work with in Sirius. You can define a form description which will contain pages with groups and widgets. We created another example of representations. Blockly is a library to add an editor that represents concepts as interlocking blocks. In this example, developed with the support of the CEA list, we mapped modal concepts to such blocks, and we managed to get direct edit and semantic model updates according to the position of the elements in the Blockly representation. Providing a web framework allows us to reuse classical web libraries like D3, enabling powerful visualization components. In these examples, we integrate to OCP the possibility to create a new kind of representation, a force-directed tree. This representation uses a force-directed layout of a tree using hierarchy links. We can use also any of the D3 visualizations. We added also the zoomable circle packing to navigate into the model elements hierarchy, or another one, for example, a tree map. With Sirius Web, it is easy to integrate classical web library to map your concepts to a more appropriate visualization, depending on what you want to highlight. And now, stay with me as the moment is coming. We are happy to announce that we managed to provide a full web experience. The Sirius Web Principles until now were these ones. You use the classical EMF and Eclipse stack to describe your domain and your graphical views, and Sirius Web is able to render the graphical modeler in your browser. The idea is that we do not want anymore to use Eclipse for the domain definition and the Sirius configuration. From today, you can do everything from your browser. We provide a domain modeler, which can be used to create a new domain containing entities which can be abstract, and each entities provide attributes, and relations which permit to connect entities together. I will show you this in action with a small video. My first step is to specify a new domain. For that, I am using the new domain modeler. This domain represents a kind of to-do lists on a dashboard. So I create a dashboard concept which contains lists, and list contains stickies. I need also to represent members. This then will be assigned to stickies, so I create a relation for that. All these elements should have a name attribute. So I create an abstract entity with a name attribute. Then I specify that a dashboard is a named element, and same for the others. One last thing. I need to know if the task written on a sticky is finished or not yet. So I add a new attribute done on a sticky, which is a boolean. Then I will specify the graphical representation I want to provide in my end user studio to represent my domain. I define a new view model which contains all the mapping between my domain concepts and their graphical representations. So I create a new view which contains a new diagram description. I want to create this kind of diagram on dashboard elements, and I am using SQL expressions to get information from my model elements. This diagram also will be auto-layouted, and so I check that. Then I define the mappings between my domain concept and their graphical representations. First, I create a mapping for the list. Same as earlier, I am using SQL to go through my model, here with the list relation. As you can see, on the domain there is a list relation, and I will do the same for the name attribute. Okay, now I need to define a style for my list. There will be then represented thanks to a container, and I decide that this container will have a white background, so I will put white as a color. And okay, when this is done, I need to go back to my domain and to give it a name. I will name my domain stickies, and I give it an URI which should be unique on the server. So I will put domain stickies, for example. I'm ready now to try my new domain and its diagram on an instance model. So I'm going back to open a new project. This project will be an empty one, so I'm selecting the stickies instance, and I create a new model. I can select my new domain. So I'm creating a new root object. I can select the domain stickies, as you can see. And you see that it is directly usable. There is no code generation involved, no server restart, no module to deploy. Everything is interpreted dynamically by Sirius Web. Automatically, when the domain is defined, I have access to CRUD tools on the Model Explorer to create model elements. Here are my lists, and I can do the same for members. I can create also a new dashboard representation. So not this one, sorry, the dashboard one. Okay, I create a new representation, which is the one we just specified earlier. So I'm putting a name. It would be the Alice dashboard because Alice needs a to-do list. Okay. Automatically, as I have defined a mapping for the list element, I see the list on my diagram. As the diagram is auto-layouted, I cannot move elements of the diagram. Sirius Web provides also a default detail views, which can edit all the properties of an element. Here I can change the name of my list or of my members, for example. I put Alice as a member of my dashboard. Many elements are not yet visible on my diagram, as you can see. So what I decide is that I will go back to my diagram definition to add them. Okay, I had a mapping. So for the members, and then I will add a style. This time I'm using a shape to represent them because it's great to see them as actors. Stickies will be red by default, and I add a conditional style then to make them green when the task is done. Okay, I want to represent also the assigned to relation by an edge between members and stickies with an arrow on the target. Then if I go back to my instance model, I can add much more elements on my diagram. All the default creation tool and deletion tool are automatically created by Sirius Web. I can create stickies, and when I change the value of the done attribute, the conditional style applies on the stickies. I could also add some more stickies, and I could also assign members to sticky. As the diagram is auto-layouted, the layout is always clean. And I have also the capability to add another member, for example, Bob, and I can also have automatically direct edit tools available. So that's pretty cool. With that really few things, you can have much more thanks to Sirius Web. Now, I decided that I don't want anymore my stickies represented with a container, but as a last item. So I iterate again on my diagram definition, and you can see I get some great results. So I will go back to my slides now. To sum up, what you see in this demo, we provide a web graphical modeler to define your domain. Then you can specify the Sirius configuration directly in the same environment and just use the newly defined studio directly in your browser. There is no code generation involved, no server restart, no painful deployment phase. To get more details about Sirius Web, I invite you to attend the talk of Stefan Begodo tomorrow. Supercharge your Sirius Web app. He will demonstrate all these things in a live coding session. This year, we also give some love to the OBO Cloud platform, the enterprise-ready version of Sirius Web. For example, OCP provides a webhook mechanism. Webhooks can be used by your dev team to update a database, update a backup mirror, integrate with another web application, but they can also be used directly by end users through no-code tools like Zapier to customize your new business workflows, such as notify by email the modification of a specific model element, publish every modification on a diagram into a Slack channel, or trigger an event in a business process. You are only limited by your imagination. Webhooks allow you to build or set up integrations which subscribe to certain events on the OBO Cloud platform. When one of those events is triggered, we will send an HTTP post payload to the Webhooks configured URL. Here, in our example, we register a webhook which automatically saves semantic model updates to a GitHub repository. Under the hood, for the developers, how does it work? It is pretty simple. First, we wrote a small node server. Second, we register a new webhook on OCP. Then, this webhook listens for the semantic changes. And finally, when a semantic event occurs, the model is pushed to a Git repository. Okay, this was for what we did, and I am thankful for all our customers for their support this past year to Sirius Web. Now, I would like to introduce what we have in mind for the future. In the next months, we will manage unsynchronized diagrams. We already have some prototypes of unsynchronized diagram with all the associated features as multiple selection and drag and drop from the Model Explorer. In parallel, we will work on improving the user experience by contributing a magic connector. You click between two elements in a diagram, it proposes the different possible relations according to what you want to connect. We will also provide a first support for Dialogs. Then, we will reintroduce the validation and error markers capabilities which exist in Sirius Desktop in Sirius Web. You'll be able to launch a validation on your model, and Sirius Web will decorate the semantic elements with error markers accordingly. We will continue our work on improving the integration of Sirius Web with other open source modeling projects, as Axelio to generate text from Sirius Web models and M2Doc to generate document. We will also work on the Sirius components integration with cloud IDEs, and we will integrate the Model Explorer and the Properties View component to VS Code and Thea. New features will be added to OCP to improve the management of model changes. Then, we intend in OCP to manage the studio publication phase to be able to manage who can edit a studio and who can use a specific studio. Finally, OCP will support migration of your data with no loss even when metamodel will be updated. And updated. And again. And again. So, our idea is to provide a way to configure the migration with the metamodel evolution and provides tools that will do this for you for most of the simple use cases. Then, the migration configuration will be done in the Domain Studio. You do not need to use another tool and neither to restart the server. We aimed to manage simple use cases like adding an attribute, adding a new relation. And our purpose is that everything will be done dynamically and automatically for classical updates thanks to tools integrated to the Domain Studio. Like, for example, the rename of an attribute. And we want to provide also a generic mechanism to manage more complex migration use cases. Then, compared to Sirius Web, OCP will provide a migration rule formalism which allows to specify migration steps from one domain version to another. Migration steps could be specified for all the domain concepts like attributes, relations, and even more generic migration rule language will be provided to manage complex use cases. We aim to rely on the same principles which made the success of Sirius. You'll be able to provide interpreted expressions which will be evaluated at runtime to provide a behavior specific to your domain evolution. You'll be able to manage, for example, the split of an attribute, the change of an entity becoming abstract, or, for example, the conversion of a relation to an entity. In the end, the migration mechanism will come with the capability to navigate in the historic of your instances models even if the domain evolved. You'll be able to get back to previous model instances at any time and get the model version and the corresponding compatible tooling. Our purpose is to ensure that you will never lose any data. In the next months, Sirius Web and OCP will continue to evolve, but remember that our roadmap depends on what you are interested in. We are open to contribution and to sponsoring. If you have few things to remember about this presentation. First, remember that Sirius Desktop is a reliable framework for the one who wants an Eclipse-based modeling tool. Then, Sirius Web is a newcomer and had proven its capabilities in many cases. You can have a full web experience to describe your domain, your views, and for deployment. OCP is there when you have Sirius Enterprise Studios to develop. And to finish, we are looking for contributions, interested parties, and sponsoring. Get in touch with me for that. Finally, give it a try. A free sandbox server is available. You can test all the features I showed you before. You just have to fill in the sign-up form and I will send you an invitation. For the full Web Studio definition, it is yet experimental and not yet deployed on the demo server. If you want to try it by your own, contact me directly. We will continue our work on the full web definition during the summer to add validation tools and stabilize this feature. We aim to offer a full web definition for everyone in fall. One last point, you should know that I will stay around for the next 2 days. If you have any question about Sirius, you can catch me on Work Adventure. Remember also to attend Stefan's talk tomorrow to get a full live demo of the new Sirius Web features. And I would love to receive any feedback you could think of. And thanks for your attention. I'll be happy to take your questions now.
So thanks, Mélanie. First question is, how Sirius Web is integrated with other projects such as Xtext?
Okay, so right now Sirius Web is not yet directly integrated with Xtext, but we already did some proof of concept and we know that it's possible. We will work on that in some months. So there is not really an issue because both are working with EMF and we have also a default EMF implementation for Sirius Web. So it will be possible in the short future. So if you are interested by that, do not hesitate to contact me and we will see what is your use case.
Okay, thanks, Mélanie. Second question, and no, Wilbert, it's not a dumb question. Where are the models stored?
Okay, so in Sirius Web, all the models are stored in a database, but you have the capability to export them as a classical EMF models. So even if it's on the server side, you'll be able to get them locally as EMF files. Or you can also, as I showed you during this presentation with Webhooks, for example, and the different APIs you have available, you could be able also to get some information from the models thanks to the APIs. I expect it answers the question.
Okay, next one. Okay, I guess pre-existing Eclipse core models and Sirius definitions can still be used to create web editors, despite this new support to describing them directly on Sirius Web.
So definitely yes, we support both. We support already existing Sirius definition and so ecore-based model. So for that, you need to use the classical way we presented last year. So creating your ecore, creating your Sirius configuration with Eclipse. And then tomorrow, Stefan will show that, I think, in his demonstration, how you register your existing ecore files and ecore model and Sirius configuration in order that they are known by your server. And now we provide this new web, full web definition in order that you don't have to use the Eclipse stack if you don't want to. So we continue to support both, and we will do this for the future also.
Okay, thanks. Can we still use manually written services in Sirius Web?
Yes, definitely. You should attend the talk of Stefan tomorrow. Stefan will show that in his demonstration, he will show that he's using Java services, and so those services are manually written. So it's the same as before. Just you can't use any services that rely on the Eclipse platform, as we are not using anymore the Eclipse platform.
Yes, sure. What are unsynchronized diagrams?
Okay, so unsynchronized diagram, there is nothing between Sirius Web and Sirius Desktop. It exists in Sirius Desktop right now, and it will exist in Sirius Web soon. Unsynchronized diagram is when your user can choose which element you want to show on the diagram. Here, as I show you, I define a diagram and a dashboard, and all the elements that exist in the model on the dashboard, like lists and members, are present on the diagram automatically. As an unsynchronized diagram, you can choose which member you want to see on your diagram, and it's done usually thanks to drag and drop from the Model Explorer, for example. So this was my point about unsynchronized diagram. Sorry if it was not clear.
Okay, and how can I export the echo metamodel from Sirius Web and the model?
Okay, so for this, it's easy. You have a download capability on your model. You can just download the model. It will not be directly an echo metamodel, but right now it's a classic EMF model with a domain and entities and relations. But we could also imagine to transfer that to transform that to an echo model, as it's exactly today you have the same concepts that exist in echo. So the mapping is 1:1 if you want.
Okay, so it was the last question we had. There's still time to ask a question live if you want. Instead, you will have a possibility to chat with Mélanie in the work adventure area.
Yes, if you want to ask a question directly and not thanks to the chat.
Yeah. In the meantime, maybe you have something to add after your talk, Mélanie?
Not much.
Not
there
really?
is another question. Another question is arriving. Is it also possible to export the graphical part of the model? So it's not anymore the AIRD file. It does not exist anymore. It's not the same format, in fact. But when you can download the model, you can also download the file, as we should get all the position of the different element when you are using the free layout. So this is possible. This is a JSON file right now, and the JSON format, so it's not the same format as before. So you are not able to get exactly the same format as what it exists in Sirius Desktop.
Thanks. And probably the last question, up to which level will Sirius Web be available or limited in the open source realm?
Okay, so for all what I show you before exists in Sirius Web. So the full web definition is in Sirius Web. All the new things on the diagrams are in Sirius Web. The only things that stay on the OBO Cloud platform side is enterprise features. So, for example, the capability to get public and private projects, to use authentication capabilities and Webhooks capabilities, and in the future the migration capabilities will be on the OBO Cloud platform side. But else everything is open source.